I knew something was wrong the second I turned the key and felt that tiny pause. A house shouldn't hesitate like that. Homes breathe with you. They learn your footsteps, your habits, your life. But mine suddenly felt like it was breathing for someone else. So I walked out, locked the door, and pretended I was heading out of town for a week to visit my sister. A lie crafted on purpose, loud enough for the right ears, believable enough for him. I didn't actually go anywhere. I just crossed the street and hid in the shadows, waiting to see what truth would crawl out of my walls. That's when my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Hale, grabbed my shoulder. Her fingers were ice cold, her eyes even colder. "Wait until midnight," she whispered. "You'll see everything." I didn't ask how she knew. I was too tired of half-truths and polite blindness. Midnight sounded like justice back then, before everything rotted. He wasn't always a shadow haunting my home. Once, he was warmth. He touched my face like I was breakable and said my name like it meant something. We met in a coffee shop during a winter storm. He offered me his scarf. I returned it 2 days later, washed and folded, already carrying feelings I hadn't admitted to myself. We grew fast, maybe too fast. Trust felt natural. Hope came easy. So when he proposed, I didn't hesitate. I tied my future to him with a full heart. I had no idea he'd loosen his loyalty with empty hands. The first crack started small, a message he hid too quickly, a smile meant for someone else, business trips that didn't line up with his coworkers' schedules, perfume that wasn't mine. I stayed quiet. People think silence means you don't know anything. It doesn't. Silence is how you collect data. And the night I found that unfamiliar gold teardrop earring under our bed, I didn't cry. I just switched modes, emotion off, strategy on. I didn't confront him. That's what beginners do. Instead, I studied him like an enemy, his spending patterns, the passwords he thought I didn't know, the late night calls, the browser history he kept deleting but forgot was syncing to other devices. His betrayal wasn't one woman. It was an entire orchestra of lies, financial, emotional, physical. So I did what a calm, wounded, focused woman does. I built my escape like a trap. First, I separated my money quietly. New accounts, a lawyer who worked like a silent shadow with a degree. I collected evidence, dated it, organized it. Then I planted a rumor that I'd be gone for a week. He relaxed instantly, the way guilty people do when they think they've been handed privacy. Perfect. Privacy is where people reveal their true selves. Midnight came and the truth finally showed its teeth. At 11:58, the house stayed dark and still. At 11:59, the lights flickered on. At 12 o'clock sharp, the front door opened and a woman walked in. Then another. And another. 3 women, each carrying bags, casually entering a home that wasn't theirs. Then he followed them, laughing. Relaxed, free. Mrs. Hale stood beside me with her arms crossed, like she'd watched this show a dozen times. "That man treats your house like a hotel," she muttered. "You deserve better." I didn't breathe. Not from shock. Shock had burned out weeks earlier. What I felt was confirmation. The final piece of evidence I needed for the courtroom of my revenge. They drank my wine, sat on my couch, treated my life like a stage for whatever twisted game they were playing. And he, my husband, kissed one of them with a familiarity that stabbed, but didn't draw blood anymore. Pain had already turned into clarity. The next morning, before the sun rose, the police arrived, not for noise, not for fighting, but for fraud. Because while he was busy breaking my heart, he was also forging my name on loans, credit lines, and documents he was sure I'd never find. But I have found them all, and I handed everything over with steady hands. He was arrested right there in front of the same women he brought into my home. The shock on his face looked almost cinematic. "You did this?" he whispered as they cuffed him. I didn't smile. Revenge doesn't need to be dramatic. "I just stopped covering for you," I said. In that moment, his whole world fell apart. By noon, the house was mine legally and permanently. His accounts were frozen, his secrets exposed, his life reduced to a stack of charges and a list of people willing to speak against him. And finally, I walked back into my home. It breathed right again, quiet, empty, mine. Mrs. Hale watched from her porch, gave me a small nod, then slipped back inside. A silent witness, a quiet ally. I stood in the middle of my living room, the same room strangers had touched hours earlier, and felt something I didn't expect. Not anger, not sadness, not triumph, but peace. Because revenge isn't the moment they fall. It's the moment you rise and realize you don't need them anymore. That night, as the house settled around me like a loyal animal returning to its owner, I whispered the truth I had earned. I saw everything, and I lost nothing that mattered.